Hi guys. I think that it's time that I share some more things with you about my personal life. Another good old story about Cheyenne. But I was kind of, I knew that I was going to have to share this with y'all at some point because, it's a big part of my story. I wasn't really anticipating doing it this early, but I feel like the videos have kind of been going in an order, I guess you could say. You can watch them in any order you want, but the way that I felt to release them, which one would come first and second and third and blah 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 blah. They come in kind of an order. If you look at it, it's building a relationship with Jesus and then going from there. And they're kind of built on each other, getting yourself clean and recognize, how do we start this? Building a relationship with Jesus. How do you build a relationship with Jesus? Getting yourself clean, getting yourself ready. It's just like boom, 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 boom. It's headed in that direction. But I feel like this is the one that he wants me to do next. Is the most powerful weapon in my arsenal, I guess you could say, is my personal testimony, which I mentioned in my last video about being sexually molested when I was 7 years old. And I have been, healed of this, but it's still hard for me to just come out and talk about it to the world. So, that's what I'm going to do. And I knew that eventually I was going to have to tell you, because if this is going to be my thing, then you're going to have to know about it eventually. So anyways, I spent 2 minutes dragging that on. But anyways, so backstory a little bit. I came to know Jesus when I was 4 years old. I remember distinctly I had had a nightmare, and I was staying at my grandmother's house, and she came upstairs, and I told her that I had a scary dream, and she told me about Jesus, and we walked through the prayer of salvation, and I was 4. And my parents are convinced that I was saved at that time because my personality drastically changed after that, and my heart became tender towards people, where previously I was very demanding and was a hectic child. I was a very difficult child. But anyways, so that was 4. And my parents went into missions when I was 5 or 6. We joined Mercy Ships, and we went to Nicaragua, where we lived for 7 years as missionaries. And so I grew up there, a missionary kid. It was a great childhood. But one of the first few years we were there was the first year and a half, 2 years. Who was probably twice my age. He was probably 14 at the time. And he used to me and my little brother he used to hang out with us and play games with us and stuff like that. And I don't remember when it started or why it started, but it started being more than just fun and games. Anyways, I don't want to get into a bunch of details, but things happened multiple times, and luckily my little brother was never around for these things, but they happened. And I didn't know at the time what had happened to me or what had happened. I just didn't know what had happened. But it was supposed to be kept a secret. It was a game that was kept between us. And I probably should have put like a warning at the beginning of this video, and I probably will. Warning, uncomfortable content. But anyways, a few years later, I figured out, I was like 9 years old when I figured out what had happened to me. because obviously I'm still a kid. I don't know much about the reproductive system. So when I found out what had happened, I developed this hatred as a 9-year-old. It was in the pit of my stomach, like, and that it was such an intense feeling of hatred that I almost vomited. Like, as a 9-year-old child, I was very angry and very hurt, and I felt such guilt because I thought it was my fault. Like, I thought that he, because it wasn't just once. It wasn't just something that happened once. It was something that happened multiple times, and I felt guilty about allowing it to happen so many times, And I remember when I was 9 years old, laying in bed after I'd found out what had happened, I just crying myself to sleep, like every night for like a week. I was just like bawling my eyes out, just being like, Jesus, please forgive me. Please forgive me. It breaks my heart thinking about this 9-year-old me doing this, but anyways, I remember in those times that God was like, hey, I remember his spirit talking to me when I was laying there crying at night. He was like, you know what, Cheyenne? You need to forgive him. You need to let go of this hatred that you have, because it's not going to benefit you and it's not going to benefit him. Obviously, it was probably different terminology because, again, I'm 9 years old, but you need to forgive him. And so I did. I prayed and I asked for forgiveness for myself and for him. I prayed, I forgive him. Please help me forgive him. And the next thing, he told me, you need to talk to your parents about this. You need to talk to your mom. You need to tell somebody. You need to get it off of your chest. So I remember we were homeschooled at the time, and every morning before our lesson, we would read some scripture, and we would read the 10 Commandments. And breathe. Okay, the one that's like, gosh, I didn't think I was gonna do this. The one that said, "Thou shalt not commit adultery," like stabbed me every time. And I was like, okay, I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of this. And that's just the way I felt as a 9-year-old. And so after school one day, I told Mom, I was like, Mom, I broke that commandment. And I told her a little bit about what happened. And I was like, please don't tell Dad. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. And she, she did. I asked permission to tell my dad about it, and I guess they talked about it, but I didn't want to talk about it. I released it off my chest. I gave them information, and then that was the last time we spoke about it for years. For years and years and years. But I felt better because I had released information, I had prayed forgiveness, and I moved on with my life. Years and years later, after we had moved back to the States, I was going to junior high and high school in Texas. And about that time in high school, everybody just loves to ask everybody their virginity. Everybody. It's just a stupid thing about adolescents that everybody's like, are you a virgin? Are you a virgin? Oh, they're not a virgin, blah, 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 blah. It's ridiculous, but it's what happens in junior high and high school. So I was very conflicted. I was like, well, I'm not going to just like tell the world what happened to me, but I don't want to lie because I was very tenderhearted, and I still am. I always have been. But I didn't want to lie. So I was really confused as to how I should answer that question. And later on, I guess I jumped the gun a little bit. I'll get back to that. I ended up becoming friends with several different groups of girls along the way, along my high school years, junior high and high school. And whenever I was becoming really close with people, usually there was like 3 of us in little clusters. I always felt the need to tell them that this had happened to me, not to seek pity, but because I wanted them to know. I didn't want to feel like I was hiding something. I didn't want to feel like I was keeping something from people who were important to me. So I would tell them. And, we'd have the conversation. I felt better. So gradually over, the course of my high school years, I would talk about it here and there with little groups of people, just to allow myself not to feel like I was hiding things from the people that I loved. So I was able to talk about it. Oh, my leg. Okay, now getting back to the virgin thing. One of these girls that I had told was present during a time, and I'm including this because if any of y'all have ever felt this way, I want to help you get this off your chest. Especially young girls who have experienced things that I have just mentioned. There was some random person asking me if I was a virgin, not someone who was really close to me. And this girl who I had told, she answered for me. She says, yes, she is. And then she pulled me to the side because she saw that I was like struggling with answering this question. She pulled me over and she said, Shine, you don't have to tell them. Like, just say yes. It wasn't your choice. You're allowed to say, yes, I am a virgin. You're allowed. I give you permission. And that was such a weight lifted off of me. I was like, yes, thank you. Because I wasn't lying. And I wasn't throwing my pearls to the swine, just giving out my intimate information to every old random person who asked. So I know that there are other girls who struggle with this. And because I was the statistic in my friend group, I was always the statistic. I'd heard, and 1 in 3 girls have been sexually abused in some way. And I was that 1 in 3 because I was always friends. There was always 3 of us. In whatever circle I was in, there was always 3 of us, and I was the statistic. And I was okay with that. Because God, He gently took me through the healing process of forgiveness and walking it out and talking about it and including people in my healing process and allowing people to speak into me. And because of those things, I didn't end up with depression or self-harm or self-worth issues like so many women do. Because I had a friend who experienced something similar to me, and she struggled with so many things, and so many girls do, and I feel for you. But the only reason I am who I am is because He was there beside me the whole entire time, like just gently guiding me. And so as I was able to, walk through it and talk about it with different people, I was able to feel more comfortable talking about it with different people. And then the World Race came, and the training camp before the World Race. So again, I had been walking through healing for a long time, so I kind of felt like this was, and I had already been to the deliverance people, or person that I talked about in the previous video, and we had addressed this issue. So it was like right on the brink of there was one little link left in my chain, and I was ready to break it off. Like, I have walked through this thing for years. I'm ready to break it off. Like, I'm ready for Him not to be stuck in the back of my head, reminding me every single day that He's there, And so when I went to the training camp, it was like the second to last night, we all gathered as a group in this room as a squad for one of the first times that we had all gathered together, and we had the time of talking, and they asked if anybody wanted to come up and share a few things, and I just felt the Spirit say, you know what, you need to get up there. And I was like, what? Let's not do that, let's not. I pass. But I was ready to get rid of this thing. I was ready. And so I was like, nope, that's me. Got to get up there. And again, I wasn't seeking pity for my new squad mates, but I needed to release this thing. And the way to do it was to go up in front of 55 plus people and speak it out. And so I did. I went up there and I gave them a condensed version, and I was like, there it is. And then I walked down and that was the first time I've told strangers, like 55 plus people. And I walked down from the stage and I was like shaking. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe and after that, I had so many of my squad mates approach me and hug me and said, girl, I had the same thing happen to me. Thank you. You gave me so much courage. And I was like, okay, good. Thank you, Jesus. And then the next night was the final night, and it was and we played that song, the Break Every Chain song, and I was up there and I was like, yes, like I was bawling, and I was in the back just like, get this thing off of me, like I'm done, and I was into it, like I was a mess. But several of my squad mates that had approached me the night before came to me and laid their hands on me and prayed with me and broke that thing off, and it's gone. The final thing that I had to do was include my family in it, which was the hardest part. So, again, because we haven't talked about it for 13 years. So it's always kind of been the elephant in the room. And so, I came home from training camp and I gathered all of my family in the living room. My brothers and my sisters and their husbands and wives and my parents. And I sat in the middle and I said, guys, I got to tell you this thing. Got to get it off my chest. And I did. And then we had to walk through another thing of healing because they had to process it. And, my parents had to walk through a whole bunch of healing because I was their daughter, which I can't imagine. I mean, if this happened to Zira, I'd probably go Ramsey Bolton on that person, like mutilate. I mean, I would, and then I'd have to walk through some healing myself. But I don't know how they dealt with it. I really don't. But they did, and God had to walk them through their own thing. But it was out there. We talked about it. It's a thing. And that was the last of it. I was like, okay, good. I can breathe now. We have talked about it. So it was a process, y'all. It was becoming comfortable enough. Okay, so when I was 9, praying forgiveness. I prayed forgiveness over him, over the years so many times. It wasn't just a one-time thing. It was a reoccurring prayer throughout the years. And then, speaking to people about it, gradually opening up about it, getting it out there, becoming comfortable talking about it, to finally being able to, going to the deliverance guy and breaking a bunch of stuff off, and then going and speaking over a bunch of people and having them pray over me, and finally bringing it to my family. It was a long, painful process, but it was worth it because now it doesn't have any power over me. Hallelujah, praise the Lord. So what I really wanted to share that with you guys, because there's no way that I could continue this career or path or journey or whatever you want to call it without telling you guys about that, because that is the main part of my testimony. And for any of y'all who have dealt with this, there is hope that you do not have to live with it for the rest of your life. You don't. You don't have to be depressed. You don't have to do self-harm. You don't have to. Because he's so good. He will help you. He will heal you. He will take all that stuff out. No, he's good. So, I just wanted to tell you guys that for those reasons, but also because I want to give people hope. This isn't about me up here telling you very intimate things about my life. This is about Jesus using my story to help someone else. And that is why I agreed to do this and any of these videos. It's not about me. It's not about my story. It's about God and how he is going to use these things to touch you guys. So, anyways, last thing. The thing that I'm going to include with this video is a long blog that I actually wrote on the race that I never published. So it's several years old, but still very relevant. So, yes. Thank you for listening to me, and I really hope that this brings hope to somebody, because there's hope at the end of the tunnel. And you can get those chains off. You can get them off. They will come off. I promise you. They will. All right. Thanks.